What if your physical strength was more than fitness? What if it was a spiritual calling? My guest today, Sean McManus, walked away from the corporate world to follow God's lead. And now he's teaching men to reclaim their strength, their confidence, and their purpose. Faith, fitness, fatherhood. This episode will hit your soul as well as your shoulders. Sean McManus, welcome to the EOR podcast. Let's go. Hey, everybody, it's Quinn Magnuson, host of the EOR podcast. Today's guest, Sean McManus, believes that your physical strength is more than just a personal goal. It is a spiritual responsibility. From corporate success to a higher calling, Sean walked away from comfort to follow God's lead. He teaches Christian men how to trade laziness for discipline, desires for devotion, and a comfort for calling. Sean McManus, welcome to the show.
Quinn, great to be here, brother. I'm excited to chat with you today and to provide some value here to your audience. Thanks for having me.
I really was intrigued by your, and I don't want to call it a niche because that dismisses the connection between faith and fitness, right? There's a definite connection, and I believe there are a lot of people out there that use their faith to grow themselves in all areas. So whether it be as a family person, whether it be in the gym, at work, they use faith and their beliefs as really the strength in their life. And I do too. And so I believe in what you're bringing to the table. And so the first question I want to ask is, let's go back to the beginning. You've said that you left the corporate world to follow God's lead. So let's go back to that moment. What pushed you to make that leap?
Yeah, so it was a scary time in my life. It was a good time in my life, but there was definitely some fear there. So I'd had this calling on my heart just to do something more. I didn't know what the more was. I knew that it had something to do with entrepreneurship because just the way that my brain works, just the way that I'm wired, I was never a fan of having a boss. And so I knew there was something there. I just didn't really know what it was. So I had kind of stepped out and done some, you can call them side hustles. You can call them, trial and error runs. I had done some coaching while I was working my W-2. I had done some home repair, construction style work while I was doing my W-2 because I had some experience in that as well. I had thought about stepping out multiple times, but it had never really gotten pushed over the edge. There was one time in particular that I felt like, God was calling me to step away from my job. And so I actually put in my notice and went and talked to my boss. And the closer it got to that date, the more I don't know if I didn't feel as called or I got cold feet. Looking back on it now, I can see some dots that connected I almost feel like that was God's way of testing me and be like, hey, will you jump when I tell you to jump? So at that time, it was like, okay, you did what I asked you to do. Now let's pull back. I actually need you to be here for a little while longer. So ended up staying at my job. Then they continued to allow me to work there and for actually a couple more years at that point. And at one time we had one son. My wife and I had one son, and we've always been a single income household. So what I was making at the time, we were okay. There really wasn't a lot of extra. And then as the years went on, as the economy shifted, it became more and more of just to get through the month, we had to pull out of savings. So it's not that we were eating beans and rice, but there wasn't anything extra. And so God blessed us with a second child, my second son. And as soon as my wife got pregnant with him, I knew at that point in time that I was like, all right, now you're on a time clock. Like, this is for real, for real. There's no more playing around. So because I had tried to pursue a management position at my current employer and it didn't work out. So I was kind of capped. It was like, all right, this is what I make. This is what you get. This is it. So when we got pregnant with our second son, I started to look around and I knew there was something more. Still didn't know what it was. Doing a lot of praying, trying to figure that out. I wasn't getting a ton of clarity, but I knew that if I could get into sales in some way, shape, or form, that there was a lot of opportunity for me to be able to make the kind of money that I wanted to make and that I needed to make to support my family. So that's what I was looking for particularly, because I didn't have a lot of college. I have an associate's degree. So it's not like I went and got a bachelor's or a master's or like a high paying type degree. So I was like, all right, I got to find something in sales. So I started looking. I found an opportunity for a solar sales position about an hour and a half from my house. And I was like, I don't know, we'll try this. So I went and interviewed with a couple different solar companies. And man, they did a good job selling me that job. There were some guys there that were there. They were good salesmen, and they're like, "Hey, like you look good, you carry yourself well, you're fit, you're clean. It's like if you work hard and you learn fast, you can make a ton of money here really quickly." And that was music to my ears. I was like, "Hey, I can work hard, I can learn fast. Like I got this under control." So put in my 2 weeks notice at my corporate job, and this was no 2 months. 2 months before my wife was due to have our second child. So threw away my health insurance, threw away my safe W-2 job right before we were getting ready to accrue these hospital bills from having a baby. So a little bit of fear there for sure, but I felt like that was the right move at the right time. So started with that solar sales position, door-to-door sales. Didn't like it. Didn't really like the way the company was doing business. I was actually pretty good at making people feel comfortable, at having conversations, but there was just some like little pieces here and there, like the way that they said certain things and the way that they were kind of misleading, not like plain misleading, but a little bit misleading. I was just like, this just doesn't feel right. I didn't like showing up to people's houses at 5 o'clock when they got off work and they just wanted to hang out with their family. And it was like, hey, I'm trying to sell you something. And I really didn't believe in it. So didn't do super well there. So from there, I pivoted and went back to doing home repair work. So I was still doing some coaching at the time, started to get full on into home repair. And I was having to go out and find clients for both of those businesses. I was trying to grow the coaching. I was trying to grow the home repair. So there were two new businesses at one time, and did that for a few months. And finally it got to the point and I was like, I don't really want to do home repair for the rest of my life. The only reason I'm doing it now is because I know I can make money doing it and pay the bills, which is fine. But eventually it came to the decision. I was like, okay, I do want to do this coaching full time. So instead of trying to do both of these things, I'm just going to do that. So that's where we are now. And I left out a few details here and there, but that's the overall gist.
So I've had several moments in my life like this where there's a few beliefs that I have, and I'll share them with you. And one of them is that I mean, and some people, hate when I say this, but I do believe everything happens for a reason. But when I say that, I'm not trying to excuse, tragedy and death and famine and things like that. But what I'm saying is the effort and the energy that we put out into the world, whether it be faith-based or not, is ultimately what gets brought back to us. And I think energy is real. I think everybody has an energy force, an energy that they give off. And once again, for some, it's faith-based, it's Christian or other. And I believe that as long as I continue to put effort into being a good person, being a good father, being a good employee, or now I own my own company, keep putting those efforts in, hence effort over results, God will just place me where I need to be. And I've never felt that more than this year in leaving my corporate job myself and starting EOR and branching out and doing this. And it's so funny. I said to my wife the other day, I said, God has us. And so my question to you is, and being a faith-based man, I'm sure you felt this more than just in the last few years in your life. This is something that you see these things happen throughout your life. But how hard is it to now express your faith in everything you do? And so what I'm getting at, Sean, is what I've found, and maybe the United States is a little bit different because we're up here in Canada, but that it felt like almost like in the early 2000s, there became this almost anti-Christian sentiment in the schools, in our workplaces, just in society in general. And I'm not saying Christianity has to be above all. I think it's something that people believe in, and it makes them, hopefully makes them better people. But it was so hard to express your faith in the workplace, express your faith in, in the school systems and so forth, right? So how hard is it now for you to express that faith in the coaching that you do? It may not be hard for you personally to actually express it, but what is the feedback you get? Because I'm sure it's mixed.
Man, so that's a good question. It's almost easier now to express it. And I say that because my business revolves around it. Like I only work exclusively with Christian men. And I went back and forth on that when I started the business. And I was like, because I kind of had this feeling like I'm supposed to only work with Christian men. And kind of had this scarcity mindset of like, well, then you're just like alienating a bunch of people. And what about witnessing to people that aren't Christians and
I
all
was
of
going to
these
ask that
things?
question. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And but I just like I kept bringing it to the Lord, and I was like what do you need from me? What am I supposed to do? What do you want from me? And I kept getting the same thing, and it was you need to work with Christian men. Christian, the message that you have needs to be shared specifically with them, because there's a ton of people out there that self help, personal development, growth, all of that stuff for a wide variety of people. But when it comes to specifically Christians and having it like looking at it from a biblical worldview, it's different. Like there's not as much of that. And I really felt called by God to help make his men strong again. So that was kind of the basis of the business and of, working specifically with Christian men. Now, coming back to your question, I say it's easier, and it is because that's what my business is built around. And I'm not worried about, what my boss thinks or blah, 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 or any of that. But the difficult piece with it is because that's what my business is built around, it now forces me to project that all the time, if that makes sense. And I say difficult because it does require a sense of courage, because now it's required of me to share my faith boldly, because I'm preaching that in the message that I have and in my business. And so that is now a requirement of me. And I feel it more now than I did when I was in my W-2. Does that make sense?
Whoa, 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 whoa. Sorry, everybody, for interrupting the show. I just came to you to ask a favor. If you enjoy the content we're putting out here on Effort Over Results, the podcast, I would love it if you would hit that subscribe button. It costs you nothing. We're not going to spam you. We do 1 to 2 episodes a week, and we would just love to have more people see and hear the great guests that we're getting on each week here on the show. So that's one request I have. The other request I have is for you to go to our website, effortoverresults.com, poke around, take a look, see if there's anything there that really excites you or gets you energized as a business owner, as a leader. I think you'll find something interesting there. And we have assessments for your team and for you to find out if you are truly leading with an effort over results philosophy. And now, let's get back to the show. Complete sense, actually. I understand how it's like I've decided this is the way, and so it makes it easier to do it because I have no other, well, not no other choice, but you've decided there's no other way then to do it this way. So I want to challenge you then, Sean. What if, because as Christians, we would love to bring others to the path, right? To expose them to what God and Jesus bring to our lives, not force it on them. So if someone came to you, really, goes into your Instagram, really likes, the programs you develop in terms of fitness and health, and strength, and how do you vet that? And how do you ask somebody? Because it almost seems like going to a job interview where they're asking what your faith is, and if you say, well, I'm not Christian, I'm an atheist or whatever, it's like, well, sorry, you can't have this job. So how do you handle those situations, and would you not want to share the message with everyone?
Yeah. So good point. I do want to share the message with everyone. So if
Yeah.
somebody's coming to me and, they're like, hey, I really like the way that you do things. And it's almost, so that's part of the way that my content is the way that it is. That's part of the way that I put my faith so out front. It's like, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is who I am. If you like me, great, but that is a requirement to work with me. Now, if you want to come to me, like if a brother comes to me and he's like, hey man, I've seen your message, I really like the way that you put things or the way that you do things. I'm not a Christian, but I'm curious. Cool, bro. Like, let's have lots of conversations. What questions do you have? Let's talk about it. I'm all ears. What can we do to move this forward? How can I help you in your journey? So that's definitely a piece of it. But as far as like vetting, there's the biggest vetting process would be like them coming through my content, because I'm not a really big social media account yet. It's a very focused group of guys that follows me, which is good. And obviously we want to grow that, but as of right now, it's like the people that follow me, the people that work with me know very well what I'm about, and there's no question there.
Mhm. I on a past episode, I had someone from C12 in Ministries, and he talked about bringing faith into the workplace. So he works with CEOs that are faith-based.
Awesome.
And so much similar to what you were doing, you're working with, with men that are Christian, that there's obviously a common bond there. I asked him this same question, so I'm going to ask you. How do you, and it might be even tougher for him because in the workplace you have so many more rules and guidelines, whereas when you're just personally training somebody, you kind of set your own rules and guidelines, right?
Of
But I
course.
asked him, I said, how hard is it to show your faith, show your love for God in the workplace without it turning the non-Christians away? Meaning, growing up, I grew up in a very faith-based family. My grandfather was a Baptist minister. So but what people will say about religion and about Christians in general is like, yeah, they force feed you. They stuff it down your throat. They're constantly, questioning your morals when they're not following their own, things like that. And so this gentleman from C12 Ministries basically said, he goes, I just try to act and behave as a person who is trying to help others and to be as Jesus-like as possible. But he goes, I don't bring up scripture. He goes, I don't bring up, anything like that. He goes, I just want to let, the light of God and of Jesus just shine through me. Is that similar to you, even though you're working with Christian men? How much does it permeate the conversations you have in the gym with your clients before and after, in potential clients that you may be vetting to work with? How do you present that to them without making it look like you're overdoing it?
Mm, interesting question. Okay. So I haven't really thought about that super deeply. I understand. I think I understand the question. I understand where you're coming from. It's, and I would say my answer is probably similar to your past interview. Is like, I'm going to do the best that I can to live in the way that Jesus has called me to live and to live out in the way that he lived out while he was here on this earth and the way that he's commanded us to live out. I don't project a I'm better than you scenario. I don't project a shove it down your throat scenario. On the flip side of that, I'm not going to apologize for it either. It's not that I'm going to completely shove it down your throat, but it's who I am. Like, it's my heart. It's what I'm going to share, and it's kind of the idea of like, if you don't like it, don't follow my account. Like, and it just is what it is. Like, I'm going to share my faith. That's just who I am. I don't know any other way of doing it. It's how I'm going to operate my business because it's how I feel God has called me to do that. Now, obviously, I'm not going to do it perfect. I'm a human. I don't do things perfectly, but I'm going to do the best I can at doing it in the way that I feel like is the way that he wants me to do it.
Well, in terms of getting the message out, and you are still running a business, you are still trying to gain revenue from the business of being a personal trainer, correct? And you
Of
still
course.
have to put your message out there. And I don't mean the message of God, but just the message that you're out there. You are a personal trainer. You're willing to take on clients that are Christians. And it is, and I used the term niche before. It is a niche. You basically decide. I mean, it'd be like if I said I only want to work with business owners between $1 and $3 million who are only in the construction industry. I'm niching down to people that I specifically feel I am an expert in working with, right? And so you don't have to apologize for that. And I'm glad you said that. You said, I'm not forcing it down their throats, but I'm also unapologetically Christian and I'm just going to be who I am. And so I like that answer because you're basically saying it's basically like you said, it's the old, if you don't like what you see, turn it off, change the channel, move to a different, Instagram platform, right? So I like that, Sean. So you talk about strength training as a form of spiritual discipline, and let's connect those two now. So what do you mean when you say your physical strength is a spiritual responsibility? Because I think that connects to you are blessed with what God has given you. You need to glorify that by being the best you can with what you've been given. Is that the connection there?
Yeah, so there's a couple different pieces there. That's definitely one of them. And
Yeah.
one of them is everything that we have on this earth is basically on loan from God. If you're a Bible believing Christian, then everything that you have is on loan from him. It all belongs to him. So one of those things being our bodies. So it is our job as Christians to steward the bodies that he gave us well, to be able to return those bodies to him eventually and say, here it is, Father. I took good care of it. I was a good steward of what you gave me. The other piece to that, there's a couple different ones, but the another one would be the physical often imitates the spiritual, or vice versa. The spiritual often imitates the physical. I'm getting them mixed up right now. But meaning like as you grow in disciplining your body, as you grow in disciplining your mind, as you grow in disciplining your diet and your nutrition, oftentimes that discipline transfers into other areas of your life. So it transfers into, you know, your spiritual disciplines, your time with God, the way that you treat your wife, the way that you treat your kids, the way that you show up for people around you. So we can start with the physical discipline of working out, the physical discipline of controlling what goes in your mouth and controlling what you eat as a way of saying, hey, like, this is self leadership. I have to get good at this before I can get good at the other things. So we build the discipline there first, and then it mirrors into other areas of life.
Yeah. It's I had this analogy running through my head of, you know, not saying I'm God, but blessing my 18-year-old daughter with a brand new car, and she bag drives it and treats it like crap and leaves garbage in the seats and things like that. I mean, that's really what you're doing. We've been given this body, and we should treat it as such, as if it is a gift. And it is. It absolutely is. And I have to, as I get older, Sean, I'm 54 now, and my body's pretty broken down after years of football and 10 surgeries and falling apart a little bit. I'm doing my best to try to keep the duct tape and glue on
Of
through
course.
working out, through physical fitness. And so I think it's my responsibility, not only to myself, but to my family, to try to be in the best shape as possible, but also to glorify what God has given me. So I wanna ask this question because it popped up in my mind from earlier. Where has society forced the Christian man to stray from the path? Where do you see Christian men straying, and how they lost their fire?
Mm. I think the overwhelming pursuit of comfort is where a lot of us have gone wrong.
Yeah.
I think we live in a world and in a day and time where everything is so easy that we have to force ourselves to be uncomfortable in order to experience growth.
Yeah.
And not everyone, like generations before us, have not had to do that. You know, you think about 100, 200, 300 years ago, people were still going out and doing very hard things just so that they could survive. We don't have to do that anymore. Like, it's pretty easy to get on your phone and click DoorDash and have whatever you want delivered to your door. So we have to, in some way, figure out how to mimic some suffering in order to force that growth. So I think that's where society, masculinity has really taken a turn as we've just continued to pursue this state of comfort. And it's like, if I'm comfortable enough, life will be good and I can just live in that state. And in doing that, you're not really reaching the potential that God put inside of you. You're not really showing up as the best version of yourself for Him, for your wife, for your children, for your employees or your boss if you're working a job, whatever that is. So it's just this constant pursuit of like, how can I be more comfortable? How can I be more comfortable? How can I be more comfortable? And, you know, in a way that like that kills the spirit of a man inside and he doesn't even realize it's happening. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think even from a scientific basis, it's been proven that, and I even mentioned in my book that's about to come out, that we as humans were genetically designed to be challenged. We are genetically designed to face hardships and to get through them in whatever way possible. And like you said, as recently as 100 years ago, so let's call it the 1920s and 30s, I mean, there wasn't such a thing as, you know, well, TVs, in electricity in a lot of places in the world, certainly not the internet, but everything prior to that was a challenge. Our bodies are meant to be challenged. So not only from a faith perspective, but even from a science-based perspective, we are meant to go through discomfort, to go through challenges, because that's what helps us grow. And that's what makes us better people, is facing those things, finding our strengths and weaknesses and growing through that. So getting back to my question on Christian men who have lost their fire, what is the first step to rebuilding both body and faith?
I think first it's just to look in the mirror. It's like, you know, hey man, where have you let it slide? Where have you gotten comfortable? Where have you been okay with maintaining something that really isn't going well? You know, whether it's marriage, whether it's your job, whether it's your relationship with your kids, you know, where have you just gotten into the rhythm of daily routines and you haven't really challenged yourself and asked yourself, why do I do the things that I do? Why do I get home and sit on the couch and just drink 2 or 3 beers at night every night? Not saying that's an inherently bad thing, but if you're not spending time with your wife and your kids, and like your wife is exhausted and she doesn't know who she is, or your kids don't know you, like that's not the best use of your time. So, or if you're in a job that you don't like, for instance, and it's sucking the life out of you every single day, like why are you going to that job? What's the right thing to do? Okay, why is it the right thing to do? Like start asking some questions. Is your faith in a place that's better than it was a year ago? Is your faith in a place that's better than it was 5 years ago? Or have you, quote unquote, got saved, and then you're like, I'm good. We'll go to church once a month. We might even go to church every week, but I'm not pursuing a better and a deeper and a more meaningful relationship with Christ. I'm not challenging myself. I'm not growing in my faith. I'm just here. I'm just going to hang out until it's my time to die. And then, when you're 80 and 85, you're looking back in your life and you're like, what did I do? I was comfortable. Did I chase that dream that God put on my heart? Not really. Did I pursue a better relationship with my wife so I could have a thriving and an excellent marriage? Can't say that I did. Do my kids love and adore me? I really didn't spend time with them when they were growing up. So we have all these questions that can come. And honestly, when you get to that age, and if you haven't stopped to think and ask the question of why do I do the things that I do? Why is my life where it is? Why have I not taken responsibility for the things in my life that I have control over? You end up waking up at 85 years old and you're regretting how you lived your life, and now it's too late. So a lot of guys don't have that fire and that passion anymore. And it's because they haven't been challenged and they haven't taken the time to just ask, why? Like, why work this crappy job? Why have I not taken a step to the next thing? Why have I not taken my wife on a date in 6 months? Like, why do I not intentionally spend time with my kids? Like, we do all of these things that distract our minds. We scroll on our phone, we watch TV, like all of this stuff. And none of that is inherently bad. The problem is when we're not taking some intentional time and putting it in the things that actually matter.
Yeah. Yeah. And I believe that goes for faith-based men and non-faith-based men. I think that's our responsibility as husbands and as fathers to be the best we can be so that we can be the best for others around us. I preach the message of taking care of yourself so you can take care of others. And I think
Absolutely.
for a lot of people, but for men in general, there's an enormous responsibility that a lot of them feel is on their shoulders. And lately in the last couple of decades, that identity of what it is to be a man has been watered down, tainted, disguised. Young men, my son, he's 23, that generation, Gen Z men, boys, don't know what they're allowed to do, not allowed to do. And I would just go back to, once again, faith-based or not, are you good? Are you treating yourself well? And that goes by challenging yourself too, so that you can be good for others. That being your family members, that being if you become a husband and a father for your kids and for your spouse. It's all part and parcel, and it's all required. You often mention discipline over desires, and that comfort. And it's so easy to come home and sit down and just go through YouTube videos. For me, it's dumb golf videos, but go through YouTube videos and have a drink and just sit there. And it's so funny because like I'll get it an hour into that, and then my brain will just start gnawing away at me like, listen, you're being very unproductive, go and do something, right? So you talk about discipline over desires, and effort over results speaks to that. It speaks to, you can't control the outcome or the result of whatever endeavor it is that you're trying to do. All you can do is put in your honest, day-to-day, consistent effort, and then let God or the universe, whatever you want to call it, decide how this is going to play out, right? So how do you personally practice discipline over desires when that comfort is just so easy to
Mm,
take on?
it's a good point. So first and foremost, I like comfort myself. So I fall into that track as well. So I wanted to put that out there. Like, hey, we don't all have it all figured out, and oftentimes there's still a lot of that we have to battle daily. The thing that comes to mind for me, and this is obviously from a biblical worldview, is just being faithful with what you have today. Yesterday is gone. Tomorrow doesn't exist
Mhm.
because we're not promised tomorrow. We don't know if tomorrow's coming or not. We have today. We have the time right in front of us. How can you take, if today was your last day, how can you take today and be faithful with what is in front of you
Yeah.
in your business or your job, whatever it is, with your wife, with your children, with your faith, with your relationships, with yourself? How do you take the time that you have, which is literally only the time that you have in front of you right now, and how do you be faithful with that time? Maybe it's an hour, maybe it's 10 minutes, maybe it's the next minute. Maybe you got to figure out how you can be faithful with the next 35 seconds. Like, it doesn't matter. It's just what is in front of you and how can you be faithful with it?
So how do men recognize when they've replaced discipline with distraction? Because for some, like for myself, I know when it happens. I can feel it in me. If I sit for too long and I'm not doing something productive, and I don't care what it is, there's profit in all labor, as the Bible would say, right? There's something physically in me that just starts to feel different when I'm not doing something, when I'm not putting an effort into something. How do how can men, Christian or otherwise, recognize when they've replaced that discipline with their distraction?
Ask yourself if you're being intentional.
Okay.
Did you decide that you were going to scroll reels for 30 minutes? Or did you just start scrolling reels and now it's an hour and a half later? So that's the thing. Like, whatever you're doing right now in this moment, is this what you decided to do? Like, intentionally, like I went, okay, I am going to scroll these reels for 30 minutes. Or did you just pick it up out of a habit, out of a distraction and go, oof, and then now it's an hour later. So that's a good like framework or a good filter, if you will, is thinking to yourself, the activity that I'm doing right this minute, like Quinn, you and I scheduled this a long time ago. This was intentional. This is like, we're doing this podcast today. So literally thinking in your head, the activity that I'm doing right now, did I decide to do it? Or is it just a distraction or a bad habit that I just picked up and just started doing? Goes back to the why, goes back to the intentionality. Ask yourself, why do I do the things that I do? Same thing, same framework. Did I decide to do this, or is this just something that I'm doing because I do it every day?
And I would like to add an element to that, Sean. I love that. I love it. Like, is this intentional? Did I intentionally decide to do what I'm doing right now? Now, I would add 1B to that, which would be, is there purpose in what I'm doing intentionally?
Mm, very
I
good.
mean, maybe I did intentionally decide to pick up my phone and scroll through Instagram for potential clients, for, marketing purposes. But then you get to a point where it's like, okay, is there actually a purpose in what I'm doing on top of the intentionality? Because we can
Exactly.
intentionally decide to sit down and drink a cup of beer and watch, a half hour of golf YouTube videos. But at the same time, you have to add the extra caveat of, am I really serving a purpose with this intentional action, right? But I think those go hand in hand. Maybe I'm splitting hairs with that. I want to know what you mean by biblical confidence, because you coach men on reclaiming confidence, not ego driven, and this is where I think all people, men and women, but we need to park the ego, but where it's spirit led. So what does that biblical confidence look like?
Yeah. So the first piece of that is confidence in who you are under Christ. Meaning, if you're a man, which is the guys that I work with, confidence in the fact that as a Christian, you are a son of God. He is the one that says you are worth it. Nothing else does. Like, that's where that biblical confidence comes from. Now, when it comes to like, that ties into day to day confidence, but when it comes to also that factor of like self confidence, that comes from the fact that you are under Christ and you know who you are in Him, and also it comes from you keeping the promises that you've made to yourself. So we go through this cycle, and this is often what happens when men lack self confidence. They've told themselves that they were going to do something, and then they never followed through with it. So, think about somebody that that lacks integrity, that lies, that you really can't trust. You don't have confidence in them to follow through on their word. The same goes for us with ourselves. So if we're like, I'm going to do this thing today, and then we don't follow through with that thing today, that knocks our confidence in ourselves down this much. And if we continue to do that, eventually we get to the place where we just don't have any anymore, because we have basically taught ourselves through our actions that we can't be trusted. So then we have to start the process of building that back up. And how we do that is the same way as we keep promises that we make to ourselves. So the way that I preach that is like, we've got to start small. The problem is guys will try to take on too much too fast. They're like, okay, I'm overweight. Things aren't going well. I don't eat good. Right now, I'm going to go to the gym 7 days a week. I'm going to eat a super healthy diet. 3 meals a day is going to be perfect. Like, and then it's like, oh, bro, too fast. You can't handle that all at one
Give up.
time.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's like, okay, 3 days later, I'm like, oh, I'm exhausted. I can't handle this. And then we're back to cheeseburgers and sitting on the couch. So we have to make small changes. And so what I mean by that is like, just pick one thing. Don't change it all overnight. Pick one thing. Hydration is very important. So often I'll tell guys, like, start with water first. How much water do you drink in a day? Like, oh man, I don't know, 3 glasses a day. Like, okay, well, that's definitely not enough. So start with half a gallon, like 64 ounces of water. I want you to hit that every day for the next 2 to 3 weeks. Okay. Once you do that, all right, now what's next? I think I should work out. I think that's a great idea. Let's walk twice a week. Okay. Now we're going to do that for a couple of weeks. That's now a habit. We've kept that promise that we've made to ourselves, and we've started stacking wins. And as we stack wins, the confidence starts to grow.
You've read
Let me
Atomic
just
Habits,
add more
haven't
and more
you?
to it. Yeah. Oh yeah. Of course.
Yeah. Love the
Yeah.
stack.
That's the
Stack and
process in
wins.
that one. Yeah.
There you go.
Exactly. But
So,
it works.
no, it does. It absolutely does. And I saw this in my own life. I saw it in my kids' life, my wife and friends. It's like it's the New Year's resolution, right, Sean? It's I'm going to start doing this, and they overload themselves with expectations, self expectation, and expectations is in my mind what causes burnout, fast and furious, right?
Of course. Yeah.
I have a saying: put your gym bag by the door. And
Mm.
basically, what I mean by that is just take that first little step each and every day. That is the easiest. And I know I'm preaching James Clear Atomic Habits, but still, it's like put your gym bag by the door. If you haven't been to the gym, and I did this with my daughter. She hadn't been there in 3 years, and she used to be a high performance athlete. I was like, Annika, just put your gym bag by the door. And every day you walk by it, you look at it and you go, okay, I'm going to put it in my car.
Yeah.
And now it's in your car, and you drive by the gym each time you go to work, and you're like, okay, maybe I'll stop in, and and it just builds little habits. So I love what you're saying about that, because it really, and this is what EOR and what effort over results is. Results are great, but results happen whether they are going to happen or not, good or bad. It's what the effort that you put in consistently. And if you load yourself, like you said, John, with too many things. So I'm sure you work this with your clients. It's like, someone you get first client, they're extremely overweight. You're like, how much water are you drinking? Okay. How about this? For the first 2 to 4 weeks, we're just going to work on that till it becomes a habit. Okay. Walking twice a week and doing little things, because otherwise you get defeated. And that is really what defeats us physically and mentally, and sometimes spiritually, is placing too much expectation on ourselves, largely because of the expectations of others. And really, the only expectation we should have is of ourselves to be a little bit better each day, and to praise God by using the body that we've been given, right?
Yep.
So,
Absolutely.
so let's talk about leading like a lion. Leadership starts with sacrifice, not dominance. And I've grown a bit tired of saying servant leadership, especially in business circles, because I think it's been kicked to death like a dead horse. And I think servant leadership now basically has been watered down to mean just be nice to your people, right?
Yeah. Get stepped on.
Yeah, basically. It's like, no. It doesn't mean I'm here to be your servant. What it means is, how can I help you get better? What can I provide for you to make the workplace better, to make your job, to grow you as a person and as an employee, as a student in the classroom, as an athlete on the field, as my own children? So you say leadership starts with sacrifice, not dominance. Expand on that.
Yeah. So we think about leadership, and I'm with you. The the servant leadership piece is definitely overused, probably in the business world and also in the church world as well. So as men, biblically, we are called to lead. We are called to lead our wives. We're called to lead our families. We're called to lead our communities. That starts with self leadership, which is part of the reason that I do the fitness and nutrition, because that is the first form of self leadership. You have to lead yourself well before you can lead others well. Like, that is a requirement. People are going to do what you do and not what you say. Now, when it comes to leading well, obviously that is not from a tyrannical perspective. And also there has to be some authority there. Like, so we think about the workplace, we think about business, like the boss, the leader, he has to lead well in those ways where he can connect with people and he serves them from a place of leadership, but he also has to have the authority to make the decisions that are best.
Mhm.
So there's when we talk about leadership, there's three legs of leadership. There's compassion, responsibility, and authority. So compassion is you love your people well and they know it. Responsibility is you own the outcomes. And then authority is you actually have the authority to make the decision that is best. So we have to have all three of those legs. It's kind of like a stool. Like you think about it like a
Yep.
stool. Like all of that
Three-legged
has to
stool.
be balanced
Yeah.
in order for you to be a good leader. If you have too much authority, you're a tyrant. If you have too much compassion, then you don't have the authority to actually make decisions that are in the best interest of your company, your family, whatever you're looking at. And then the responsibility piece, we can all probably think of a leader that has made some horrible mistakes, but will not take responsibility of it. Like, how are you supposed to lead well if you can't take responsibility for the outcomes? And we can think about that in a military perspective as well. If an op goes bad in the military, who's going to get the blame? Probably going to be the man that was in charge. So that's the responsibility piece. Does that kind of give you a good
Yeah, no, I love that. The three-legged stool. It makes sense. I think it's easy to follow that, and it's important for all leaders. I realize we're talking about Christian men, but I think for all leaders, anyone in a leadership position who's guiding others to help and to grow those others, but also to take the responsibility on of the outcomes and to understand that they hold the power for the decision. And it's a fine balance, Sean. I think at the top, the very top, and I'm speaking business now, but I think at the very top, CEOs and the owners and founders of companies and organizations actually have it slightly. I'm going to get in trouble with this with my CEO clients, but they have it slightly easier than middle management. And I say that because middle management is pressed. It's they're the meat in the sandwich. Like they're pressed by the C-suite above them that's saying you need to, grow profitability in this company and we need to drive revenue and we have KPIs and metrics. The people below them, they're trying to lead and be empathetic and compassionate to and to grow them, but they also need to demand those metrics and KPIs from them. And that's where that servant leadership, we kind of got to put that to the side and go into more, like you said, responsible leadership that still cares, it's still compassionate, but we still have to understand that there's a job to do. And this is the mistake that people make even with our company, with EOR. It's like, well, you just keep saying put in the effort and let's just give a participation medal to everybody. No, that's not what we're saying. We still want results. We still are trying to achieve something. We still have goals and aspirations, but we can't control those. I can't control the outcome of anything I do in life. That the only thing I control is me and my attitude and effort.
Mhm.
And that goes for leaders too. So I like what you said about that and the three-legged stool. I wanna switch gears as we start to come to the top of the hour to family and fatherhood and that legacy. And you've said strong dads raise strong kids. I want you to define strong dads though and strong kids because guaranteed there's someone out there that will misconstrue that as to mean domineering, dominant father to raise a bunch of arrogant, entitled brats, right? Let's really define what strong dads raising strong kids means, Sean.
Yeah, I love that. First of all, tyrannical, you can just throw that out the window because that's
Yeah.
not right in my mind in any way, shape, or form. But yeah, so just coming from a place of strength in your convictions, strength in who you believe that you are, strength in what you believe is important, a strength in having the boldness to share those things. So when I think of strength in a man, I think of a man that has strong convictions, a man that is bold in those convictions and is not scared to say them if need be. A man that is, I think, physical strength, a man that is strong and is physically strong and able to protect his family or provide for them, whatever that looks like. And a man that's strong emotionally, a man that is strong spiritually. When I think strength, those are the things that come to mind for me. And when we're raising our children, we want them to have those qualities. I want my sons to be strong physically. I want my sons to be strong mentally. I want my sons to be strong emotionally. I want my sons to be strong spiritually. All of those things I desire. And I don't think there's a dad out there, Quinn, that would say, you know what, I'd rather my son be weak emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, like whatever that is. But what we have to, when I say strong men raise strong sons or strong kids, What I mean by that is you can't expect your kids to grow up and be strong in those ways unless you model that for
Yeah,
them on a day-to-day basis. So
correct.
it kind of comes back to the age old adage of they're gonna do what you do. It's caught, not taught. They're gonna do what you do more than do what you say. So if you're, sitting on the couch eating potato chips and you're like, son, I want you to take care of yourself. He's gonna look at you and go, why, dad? It's obviously not important enough to you. Or if all he sees from you is you just losing your mind and losing your temper, and then you look at him and say, it's important to have self control. Do you really think he's going to take that to heart? It's like, well, dad, it's not important for you to have self control. So why do I need to have self control? So that's what I mean when I say strong men raise strong sons.
Yeah. I love that. My kids are 25 and 23 now, and I believe my son has a, he's old school. He definitely embodies a strong Christian man. But I look at his friends and I look at some of the other. I still call them kids, even though they're full on adults. But I still look at that Gen Z, that generation, and I look at especially the boys in that group, and I go, they don't. They're lost. I mean, and not all of them, so I'm not painting with a wide paintbrush, but it feels like there's more confusion and uncertainty in that generation as to who they wanna be and what they wanna do, and they don't talk about, "I wanna be a great father and husband." They don't talk about, "I wanna provide for my family." A lot of them, and society has done this to them, this isn't their fault, basically gets to the point where they don't even know how to provide for themselves. There's still 35% of young men up to the age of 33, I think, are still living at home, which is fine. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but if they're not productive, if they're really just living on a basement, couch and eating Cheetos and playing video games all day, but people want to throw Gen Z under the bus, especially the toxic masculinity of millennial men and Gen Z men. And I just think it's unfair because we're the ones that bore them and raised them. And it's our responsibility. And now maybe I'm too old for that responsibility because my kids are now that age. But I think millennial and Gen Z now need to take the torch and change what it means to be productive, to be a strong human being, physically, spiritually, mentally. And so my question to you, Sean, is: are you seeing that? Because I know you're much younger than me. You're a millennial, I would assume. But what are you seeing from the young men that you work with? Are you seeing a lot of strength in them? Or are you seeing a bit they're a bit lost and they really do need guidance?
I think there's a bit of a shift happening. I've seen it through social media. I've seen it through some of the guys that I work with. Now the important thing is, for the last decade, 20 years, whatever you want to call it, society has put this, I want to say hex on men, but
Yeah.
it's the constant, oh, masculinity is toxic, men are bad, blah, 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 blah. The church as a whole good has not done a good job at teaching men how to be men either. So we have that piece too. So there's some society to blame here, there's some church to blame here, and all of that starts with us. All of that starts in the home and in the church as well. So I'm not saying that like there's blame to be passed. There's plenty of blame for
Yeah,
everyone.
everywhere. Yeah.
But I am seeing a bit of a shift, and I think it's a good thing. I think it's just important that we continue to have these conversations and we continue to teach on what it's like. What is it supposed to be a man? Like, what is a good godly man? All of those things. And I also think that it's very important and it's going to be crucial to see the church take on more of a role in teaching that as well. I think in church and society and culture, we've done so much with trying to mesh men and women together that we have just decided that they're the same when
Yeah.
God didn't create them the same. They have equal worth and value, but they're different. Like God made men really good at some stuff and he made women really good at some stuff. Like they're just different. And that's a good thing. Like it glorifies him and it's beautiful. And when they come together and operate in the way that he designed, like it's a beautiful and incredible thing. But we've spent so much time going equal, 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 equal. They're the same. They're the same. It's like they're not.
Yeah.
And now we're reaping the rewards of young men being confused, young women being confused because we haven't been like in the church and society, like, hey, this is what it means to be a good man. This is what it means to be a good woman. And so I think it's just important that we continue to have conversations like this and just spread that message and I think there's going to be a lot of good come from that. So I've been seeing a lot more of these conversations happen recently, and I think that's a positive thing.
Yeah, I'm seeing a shift too. It's a difficult conversation because I think there is a fine balance and a happy balance to be had. We're not trying to delineate fully between male roles and female roles, but what we're saying is like, even when you ask the question, what does it mean to be a good, strong young man? There's people who will cringe at that question because, well, there's that we shouldn't be calling it that. We shouldn't be questioning that isn't the question. And it frustrates me. Maybe I'm the old white guy in the room, but it frustrates me that no, we should be teaching our young people, both female and male, in terms of being just good citizens, good human beings, Christian or not, but just leading good lives. And there's going to be some faults, there's going to be some stumbles, you're going to make mistakes, and that's what life is. That's really what life is for. That's what effort is for, is to fail forward and to really figure out, who you are from that. But yeah, it does frustrate me that it became almost taboo to talk about, I'm raising a good young strong man, in my family, and people looked at me like, what are you, living in the 1950s? It's like, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's the generation I came from. Like, I grew up in the 1970s, and my grandfather, that was the language he used.
Yeah.
For
We
me
weren't
and
having
my
this
brother,
conversation
and it
then.
was different for my sister, and it was different for my mom,
Exactly.
and different for my uncles, right?
As it should.
I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole. It because it gets controversial, and it's
Of
hard to have
course.
the conversation sometimes with people because it's so divisive a conversation. But I think the bottom line is this: is that it's just about being a good person in general. Do unto others as you would have done unto you, right? And I think but I think it's also important to do unto yourself, to be the best you can be physically, spiritually, mentally, so that you can be good for others as a father, as a husband, as a coworker, and so forth. So um, let's turn to your work in the gym. What is your background in terms of certified personal trainer, years experience? Where do you specialize? And I don't mean specialize in the clients you work with, but is there an area of specialty that you really feel you bring to the table to your clients that is, your happy zone in terms of, say, cardio resistance training and such? So let's talk about the work in the gym right now.
Yeah. So I have been pursuing physical fitness for most of my really starting in high school, but got really serious with it when I got out of college. So started spending some time in the gym before I got married. And, when I was in high school and college, I really didn't get a lot out of the gym. Like, I enjoyed going, I loved lifting weights, but I just didn't know what I was doing, and I didn't see a lot of results. So when I got out of, or when I was working and when I started going back to the gym, I got hooked up with a guy that was, several years my senior, much bigger than me, much stronger than me. And he kind of took me under his wing. So he was my first, what I call my first coach when it comes to physical fitness. And I started actually seeing results when I started working with him. He was, pretty far along in his journey, and started explaining some stuff and hooking me up with some resources when it comes to nutrition, when it comes to weightlifting, powerlifting specifically. So that was kind of the beginning of my powerlifting journey. And I started doing some competitions, competed a little bit in that for a little while. And then from then on out, for probably, I don't know, I guess the last decade, well, a little more than a decade now, it's been a pursuit of mastery over myself in different ways. And I say in different ways because we've gone through so many different life stages in that time. But I've been able to kind of stay in that physical fitness realm, and keep my physical fitness throughout those life stages. So that's a lot of the times what I tell my clients is like, hey, I know you're busy. Like, because most of the guys that I work with have kids, they have jobs, they have businesses, whatever. And they're kind of sick of seeing the fitness influencers on Instagram that don't have any responsibilities, and
Yeah.
the gym is their life. And it's the whole spiel of, we all have the same 24 hours in a day, and you have zero excuses, and blah 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 blah. And 35-year-old Bill is like, yeah, I'm with you, but I have this job, I have this side hustle because my job doesn't pay me enough. I got 4 kids, and they each do different sports, and it's, yeah, the guy's schedule is crazy. So, doing a 3-hour morning routine in the morning and a 2-hour gym routine in the evening is like, it blows his mind. So he's like, I'm not going to do anything. So my specialty is the powerlifting, weight training, because I really think it's good for men. I think it opens up this kind of primal instinct that's kind of gone away because we've been in this society of comfort for too long. And I've got some guys that do calisthenics as well, but that's kind of my background in the space thus far.
What's the hardest thing about combining faith and fitness and what you're doing right now?
The hardest thing in combining the two?
Yeah, I mean, not the hardest thing about combining the two, but just in the day to day, building your brand and getting the message out there that this is about fitness, but it's also about faith. What's the hardest part?
Hmm. I would say consistency and intentionality. I mean, that's kind of the hard, that can be the hardest thing in a lot of ways, even in my own fitness journey. Like I do this for a living. It is still hard for me to get to the gym at times. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those things like I hold myself to a standard, the standard that I preach to my guys, I hold myself to that same standard. But that doesn't mean that it's not hard for me to get there sometimes. So it's all about kind of finding that balance. And that's the beauty of having a coach in this journey is I don't care what your life looks like. We can find something that works for you that can start to help your body do the things that it's supposed to do and start getting you moving in the right direction.
Let's finish with a lightning round, Sean. Number one supplement that has to be in your cupboard or in your fridge.
Protein powder.
Okay. All right. I want to say number two because I'm hoping you'd say creatine, but that's another discussion.
Creatine would be number two.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. Protein powder,
Yep.
creatine. Favorite meal? Like when it comes to, what do you think is the healthy, maybe, yeah, I'm saying the favorite healthiest meal for yourself.
Breakfast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
does that
I'm a
consist
big,
of?
right now it's some form, it's always eggs, and turkey sausage, usually, sometimes Greek yogurt, sometimes it's in a wrap or a burrito. I do Canadian bacon sometimes because it's low fat, low carb, high protein. But yeah, as far as like my favorite meal to eat, it's breakfast and it's always some kind of egg variation 99% of the time.
Is there a passage or scripture that really defines your life, who you are, and what you're trying to bring to the world?
I would say my favorite one that's coming to mind right now would be Joshua 1:9. And I
Mm,
actually have it tattooed right there. And it's, have I not commanded you, be strong and courageous? Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go.
love it. I love that. I have a couple. There is profit in all labor. I think that basically defines effort over results. Just the one that I think everybody kind of tosses around maybe too freely, but it's just I can do all things through God who brings me strength, right?
Right.
And that those two to me are really the guiding light for what I do here and as a father and as a family man. So what I love about your message is it really bridges the gap between faith and follow through. It's not chasing perfection. It's about showing up as the man God called you to be, one rep, one prayer, one act of leadership at a time. So, Sean, I want to thank you for reminding us that strength isn't about size, it's about stewardship. So, for those of you listening, you can go follow Sean McManus on Instagram at the Sean McManus, and that's Sean SEAN. That'll be in the show notes. You can grab that, take that first step both in your walk with God and in your next workout. Sean, where else can people find you and reach out to you?
Man, Instagram's good. Facebook at Sean McManus is good. I know I'm old school for even saying that out loud, but X is the Sean McManus. TikTok is the Sean McManus. So all those platforms.
Excellent. Sean, thank you for being on the show today.
Quinn, it's been an honor, my man. Thank you for having me.